Hey guys, in today's video I want to teach you how to bend your knees correctly on the tennis serve. I teach a lot of recreational players and there are tons of mistakes committed with the knee bend in two ways. Players either mistime their knee bend or they position their knees wrong when they're bending down. So let's start off with the most common knee bend mistake that I see at the lower and intermediate recreational levels, and that's the double knee bend. And players will assist their toss with their knees. So they will bend down, toss the ball up, and then bend again. And the problem with the double knee bend is that you're not gonna have a lot of time to load your body correctly. So when you bend to toss the ball up and then bend again, the second knee bend is usually gonna be lower and it's gonna be rushed and you're gonna mess up your serve as a result of it. So how should you time the knee bend? Well, there's going to be a lot of different styles at the high level, and you got to find a style that's going to suit you best. But what you have to avoid by all costs is bending twice. There's going to be some players like Rafael Nadal, for example, who bends the entire time. So he'll start bend, toss the ball, and then he will remain bent and then finally unload on his serve. Other players like Serena Williams will be great and then bend once that ball has been released. I personally find it uncomfortable to bend while tossing the ball. This is an uncomfortable position to be in, and the vast majority of players will keep their body somewhat upright and initiate the knee bend with the other parts of their body. So they will release the ball. Most players serve with a lag, and then as the racket starts to go up into the trophy face, that's when that knee bend begins. This is the easiest style to adapt. You are compartmentalizing the non-dominant side with the dominant side. So you toss the ball first, your knees are going to be straight. Of course, you're going to go through your rocking motion and through your rhythm. That's a story for another day. But in any case, you're going to toss the ball, your legs are going to be straight, your racket's going to lag behind, and then as that ball is in the air, the racket starts to go up. This is where you can start bending your knees and loading your body. And the second most common knee bend mistake at the recreational level is the wrong knee position of the front leg. So some players will stick their knee inside the court like this, and this is how they bend their knees. And when you do this, you are harming your serve severely because now you're locking your hip, so you can't get your hip into the court. Also, you might be transferring the weight into the court too early and your body gets inside the court too fast, and often this will result in a contact that's occurring too far behind the head. And most importantly, when you stick your knee into the court like this, you're gonna have a difficult time coiling the body. So you're gonna not only lock your hip, but you're gonna prevent yourself from having the ability to coil your body and turn your chest towards the back fence. Now, a rare occurrence at the recreational level is when players have both of their knees going in opposite direction when they bend. Now, I have seen this, and that's why I'm bringing it up. And this is even a worse position to be in because it's going to be very difficult to come out of a position where your knees are going in opposite directions. You're going to be stuck down here. It's going to be very difficult to get vertical momentum on your serve. Now, it's important for you to understand that players who commit this mistake of sticking their knee into the court usually have a platform stance. Players with a pinpoint stance will naturally pull the back leg up correctly if they have an initial position of the back foot that's parallel to the baseline. So as that back foot pulls in, it's most likely going to be correct, position more parallel to the baseline. And now it's unlikely that that front foot is going to stick in like this. Naturally, both knees are going to be aligned in a pinpoint serve. So the mistake I'm talking about most commonly occurs on players with a platform stance. And here's what you have to do to fix this. You have to align your front knee correctly. And when we're talking about the tennis serve, the entire body is working in unison. So what happens on top very much has to do with what happens on the bottom portion of the serve. So players with a large coil, meaning that their chest is going to be turned towards the back fence, will usually have a position of the front knee that's parallel to the baseline. This makes sense because the more my knee is turned forward, the less I can naturally coil. So by turning this knee towards the side, having it positioned parallel to the baseline, it allows my body to coil more in the loading phase of the serve. And examples of players with this setup are Federer, Sampras, and many others. And what you will see on Federer, for example, is that his front knee is parallel to the baseline, the back knee is parallel to the baseline. He has a separation between his feet in a platform stance, and he has a large coil, meaning that his chest is towards the back fence. Now Sampras, on the other hand, had a more extreme coil, so Sampras would stick his hip into the court, which meant that his back knee would be slightly tilted forward as he got into his loading phase. On the other hand, Federer had his hip more inside the body. He didn't stick it out. And in this case, both of Federer's knees were aligned perfectly and parallel to each other. Now, if you go on Google Images and you search Roger Federer serve, you're going to see beautiful from the top images. We can see Federer down below, and you will perfectly see what I'm talking about, how both of his knees are aligned and going in the same direction. You're probably thinking, Nick, this is a beautiful setup. Should I be copying this? I'm going to tell you, you can, but you're going to have a hard time getting forward momentum. It's a lot easier to go forward if you slightly lean into the court. Federer does lean. If you take a look at that aerial image that I was talking about, you will see that his body is slightly leaned in. But Sampras, for example, leaned in more severely, and to counteract that more aggressive lean, Sampras would stick his non-dominant hip into the court in this fashion. Now, the main purpose of getting the hip into the court is to be more comfortable when leaning forward. If it's done in conjunction with a reverse C, where players are not only getting the hip into the court but also bending backwards, now both of these can work really well in conjunction, where the player straightens the body violently, and a lot of energy can be created from this movement. Now, how about the pinpoint serve? For you guys that don't know, the difference between a platform serve and a pinpoint serve is that on a platform serve, we're going to have the feet in the same position until they get airborne, while on a pinpoint serve, that back foot is going to come up to the front foot. Now, how does this matter in regards to how the knees are positioned? Well, it's going to depend on where the player drags the back foot. If it's dragged slightly behind the front foot, the player will have the option of being more parallel, because again, it's going to be more of a turned position with a larger coil. If the player pulls the back foot up directly behind the front foot, it's going to be more of a neutral position, and the coil has to be manufactured more on top, and it's generally going to be lesser. And interestingly, that front knee is going to go slightly forward. Now also, there are players who drag the foot up to the outside, and here, of course, the body on the bottom is going to be more open. The coil has to be forced. This is something that's very tough to pull off at the recreational level. But interestingly, both knees are going to be pointed slightly forward as a result of it. Now, how about players with a platform stance that have less of a coil? For example, Novak Djokovic. Well, here, because there's less of a coil, in other words, the chest is not as turned towards the back fence, it's just slightly turned towards the back fence. Now, because of a lesser coil, that front knee will be often in the same position that I described on the pinpoint stance, where it's slightly going in. But under no circumstance are players going forward with their knee and locking their body movements because of it. So guys, if you have a double knee bend, if you're sticking your front knee into the court, or if both your knees are going in opposite directions as you're bending, these are really bad errors that need to be corrected immediately with the methods that I recommended in this video.